When it comes to losing weight, there will be a time when you think to yourself or you look in the mirror, I think I'm not losing any more weight. And when that time comes, what you need to do is follow the steps I'm going to say in this video, because yes, obviously being in a calorie deficit is how you lose weight. However, sometimes there are things that make that much harder to achieve. So in today's video, I'm going to break down some of the things you should definitely double check and cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you are nailing them down. Then we can talk about a calorie deficit. Step one is ensuring your base is correct, which is your measurements. You need to make sure that the measurements that you're tracking week to week and month to month are actually on track and you're assessing them properly. So when it comes to these measurements, it doesn't just mean the scale, because we all know that's only one part of the equation. But while we're on it, in regards to the scale, make sure you are tracking your weight correctly. Track yourself at least more than once a week. If you only do it once a week, to be honest, unless you really have an issue with the scale, it's just not good enough. I would say at least 2 to 3 times a week, especially if you think you are struggling to lose weight. At the end of the day, the more knowledge you have when it comes to your journey, the better you can make sure you're actually on track. That's why, in all honesty, I would probably recommend tracking daily. If I'm being completely honest, but the bare minimum, hit 3 times a week scattered out. So like a Tuesday, Thursday, and a Saturday, just sprinkle it out throughout the week so you have more points of reference. Then you have to make sure when you are weighing yourself, you're doing it almost the same each time. So you need to try and do it the same time each day. Ideally, first thing in the morning after you've went to the bathroom and before you've eaten any food. Piss and shit before you weigh yourself, and that gives a nice base level each day. And to try and aim the consistency as well, where possible, try stick to regular meal timings. So your last meal per day is roughly around the same time. That means that when you wake up and weigh yourself, the scale is very similar to what it should be, because it has the same period to digest the similar foods you eat each day. So therefore, each time you wake up in the morning and weigh yourself, it should be closer to being more accurate. Now, outside the scales, the other 2 metrics I would always recommend doing is taking progress photos. If you're on a cut-in fat loss phase, I'll probably take one at least once every week. It's just something that you may not notice week to week, but when you look at the month's differences, you should be seeing a fairly decent trend. That aside, another one that I highly recommend is put on your favorite outfit. You'll soon realize that sometimes they start fitting better because you're losing fat, you're building muscle. So even when the scale's not going down, if you're starting to look better and fit in your clothes better, that is still a win. Now, over a long period of fat loss journey, eventually the numbers will have to go down, because your rate of gaining muscle is probably not going to be equal to the rate of you losing fat, because losing fat is easier than building muscle, unless you're like a brand new beginner. But in general, on most people, that will be the case. So I'd highly recommend taking progress photos, putting on your favorite outfit, and also weighing yourself. Those 3 across the board, you need to make sure that you're nailing them. And before we fully leave the measuring realm, I'll give the last bonus one, which most dudes never do, but my female clients have done it. And that is using measuring tape. So you measure your waist, your thighs, and wherever. For a man, probably your biceps as well, and your chest. All the areas, really, so the key areas, you should really measure them with tape, because that gives you, 1, metrics again, tangible metrics, because you can look at the numbers and see if they're getting smaller over time, regardless of what the scale says. The key thing is make sure you're measuring the same each time. There's many videos online that kind of teach you how to measure your chest to your waist to make sure you're doing the right points, because you'll be surprised how many people start just doing it wrong. So I'd recommend that as well. Next up, this is the one I believe will probably be the thing that tricks up most people without a doubt, because it's easy and very common to slip up on, and that is you need to double track the foods that you are tracking. I'm not just talking about you on the scale. I'm talking about when you're tracking these foods in apps like MyFitnessPal, especially when it's a new item of food, you need to make sure that when you scan it, if you're using a barcode, you actually look at the product and make sure it matches, because sometimes people put in the wrong data, or the barcode gets linked to like an old version of the product, or it may just be a different product completely. There's many errors that can happen. Thankfully, over time, many people do add corrections, but I'd always recommend that when you scan a new product, you double check it's the same. Even if it's an old product, just every so often, periodically, check and make sure that it's matching. As well as that, when it comes to tracking, you'll be astonished, and I truly mean astonished, how many people are accidentally tracking the food, for example, down as the cooked weight when it's meant to be the raw weight, or vice versa. The calories are not the same when you do that. I mean, a raw sack of chicken breast or chicken legs is not the same as when it's cooked. Obviously, the raw way, it's got a lot more water. It's a lot heavier typically. So you need to make sure that you're actually doing the right amount and the right thing. And once you've done that, stick to the way you're doing it. For example, some people always say to me, like, what's the best way? You know, honestly, it doesn't matter. You just need to be consistent. I personally like tracking most of my foods when it comes to meats raw, because it just makes it simple. I tend to cook for myself in bulk sometimes. So if I just track the raw weight, I know how much that portion of meat is. Whereas things like potatoes and side dishes, I will probably track those cooked personally, because I find it easy that when I'm putting on my plate, just quickly put my plate on the scale, boom. Whereas when it comes to meat, if it's got bones and stuff like that, it just makes the whole thing a little bit more of a faff. And that's another thing as well. When you're tracking things like chicken legs, make sure what you're tracking in the app, is it factoring in the bone or not? Literally, there's many things that kind of tell you this. So in case I've lost you, don't worry. When it comes to tracking foods, it is the most finicky and annoying part. But that's why it's so important, because many people kind of get led astray when it comes to this section, or they get overwhelmed and just quit. The simple way to think about it is that once you've done this once, and these are your regular meals, unless you're someone that has a brand new dish every single day, once you've nailed this down, you're kind of on the right path. Then all you have to do is every few weeks, periodically double check to make sure things haven't like slowly gone astray. And the last one before I move on is make sure you're tracking drinks and sauces. It's fairly obvious, but many people just go, oh, I'll just have a little bit of this there or a little bit of this over there, especially when it comes to things like oils. Like if you're not having like the little 1 cal spray things and you're having actual real oil, literally a little teaspoon or tablespoon can be like 100 or something calories. So I would make sure that when it comes to those easy liquid calories, that you're actually tracking them. And I'd probably, if it was me, switch out from having most liquids with calories. So whether that's oils or like drinks as well, like switch from drinks to 0-calorie drinks, or like squash, so it's like mixed with water. If you are gonna have oils, the 1-calorie sprays, yes, they have sprays, but when they're that low, hit it with like 10 sprays, you got 10 calories in comparison to the 100 you may have had otherwise. So these are the nitty gritty things you have to kind of keep an eye on. So the next biggie now is one that I'll probably make a larger video on down the line, because I feel like it's something a lot of people also do mess up on. And it is, they start doing cardio, but when they start doing cardio, they unconsciously start doing less daily steps and movement in general, because they're so exhausted from doing the cardio. For example, someone will start doing like 200 calories on the treadmill or the Stairmaster. And because of that, when they get home, they're on that sofa and they're just moving much less than they normally are. And you're almost trading like calories burnt for calories burnt elsewhere. And if you didn't know, your daily steps throughout a day, typically like your daily movement, your daily expenditure, is where you burn the bulk of your calories in comparison to cardio. Like cardio, yeah, you may push yourself solid for like during your session, but the chances are if you do that, but then you sit around the rest of the day, you kind of almost level in the playing field depending on how much you burn. So personally, I'd try and make sure that if you do add cardio into your routine, you ensure that you are still monitoring your daily steps and trying to move as much as normal, because that then makes what your extra cardio actually be a benefit, because you're burning extra, rather than just swapping out strenuous cardio for like just casual daily movement. Now, if everything I have said in this video, you're like, you know what, TJ, thanks for the info, but I have every last one of those things in check, and you truly do, now you have to accept the fact that you are probably not in a calorie deficit and you need to assess it more. And if you do believe you're in a calorie deficit, I would either do one of two things: investigate into dropping the calories a little bit lower, drop it 150 calories and see how that goes for 2 weeks. Or, which I'd probably recommend, if you're on very low calories already, I would just add an extra 2,000 daily steps to your day. So if you currently do 8,000 steps, do 10,000. If you do 10,000 currently, just add on 2,000 and so on. I would recommend doing that. Now, there are other things you can come into play, like, factoring in refeed days and deload workouts and things like that. But if I'm being completely honest, for the majority of people watching this video, the tips I've outlined just are the ones that's probably going to do the most bang for the buck. The other things is more, you have to be really intense with your training and really, pushing the bar there to really even warrant doing some of those, or doing a very aggressive calorie deficit. But if you're someone that feels like you are almost stuck in a standstill and you're just not making any more progress, be sure to click the links down below for my coaching. I can try and help you out, or check out some of my other videos where I go in detail on various of these topics. I'm pretty sure I have a video on the refeeds as well, so feel free to search for that one as well. But anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. And yeah, man, your boy's happy to be back. Afro in full effect too. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one.